I'd like to call the committee of the whole for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, June 20th, 2017 to order with roll call, please.
Betts.
Here.
Kostler.
Here.
Cavelli.
Here.
Kraus.
Here.
McAlpine. Here. Weinhammer.
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll now move to the public comment section where any member of the public can address the committee of the whole on any village business not otherwise on the agenda. Is there anybody here that would like to address the village or the committee of the whole? We'll go ahead and close that session then. Now we'll enter into a public hearing to consider an ordinance granting a variation to allow a 6-foot fence in the rear and side yards of the New Haven Townhome Condominium Association. Is there anybody here that is going to be participating in the hearing for this? Anybody here?
I'm here, but doesn't mean I want to participate.
Good answer. Well, then if that's, we're going to go ahead and close the hearing if no one is here going to participate in that. So move forward on that. And now next order of business is a discussion regarding a conceptual senior housing development by Elm Tree.
Brian just wants to give.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want?
Overview of this. Yeah.
Brian, I apologize.
Yes.
You're standing there in all your glory and I just blew right by you. Brian, do you want to talk about this?
Sure, I'll give Brian an overview of the fence variation request. The request this evening is for the New Haven townhomes are seeking to replace existing fencing that exists in the development. Presently, there's fences that exist along New Haven Drive, which are in the rear yards of the townhomes that back up to that roadway. There also are fences that are on the south end of the property, which would buffer between the townhome development and the Cimarron single-family development to the south and the Cambria subdivision to the west. Since the fences exceed our existing maximum height of 5 feet, the replacement of them requires them to comply with code or receive a variation approval. So the 6-foot fence along New Haven Drive, since it's in the rear yard and faces on a roadway, our code does allow a 6-foot height in that location. But the other 2 fence locations or the property lines are maximum is 5 feet by code. This image or these images here show the proposal on the left hand as far as the type of fence that would be constructed, and then the existing fencing which exists on the property presently. The top image is the rear yards that are between the townhomes and the Cimarron single-family homes to the south, and then the lower image on the right is the fence that you would see along New Haven Drive. The fence along New Haven Drive is currently 5 feet, but would be able to go up another foot by code. Based off the existing conditions, staff believes that the proposed fence is in keeping with the existing locality of the area, will not be detrimental to the neighboring properties or use of property in the area. So staff is recommending that the committee of the whole would recommend approval of the following motion to the village board for approval of a variation to install a 6-foot fence in the interior side yard and rear yard for the New Haven Townhomes property as presented this evening. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the petitioner is also here can answer questions as well.
Any discussion for Brian?
Looks pretty straightforward.
Yep. Thanks, Brian.
Is the board okay with this being on the consent agenda at the next village board meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, considering Sage, yeah. This is the least we can do for him.
Was that it? That's a yes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll have the discussion regarding conceptual senior housing development by Elm Tree Properties.
Thank you, Mayor. The request this evening is for a development concept for one of the vacant Caper subdivision parcels. The subject parcel is bounded by Caper Drive, Reuben Lane, Industrial Drive, and then the Goddard School on its western frontage. It's about a 4.5 acre property in total size, and it's zoned BP or Business Park District under our zoning regulations. The developer is interested in constructing a senior housing project on the property, which would be an age-restricted development under the Fair Housing Act. They're proposing a total of 76 total units, which would include three-story buildings totaling 58 apartment units, and then 18 separate townhome units that would also be part of the project. Based off the current initial review of it, staff believes that from a zoning approval requirement, it would just require conditional use for senior housing within the zoning district. The Business Park District allows various office uses, manufacturing uses. It does not allow retail, but would allow senior housing as a conditional use within that district. Under the bulk requirements that would be required for the property, based off the conceptual plan already provided, there would be a few setback variations to be required based off how the buildings are currently configured on the property. Staff has some initial comments we can get back to the developer as far as orientation of the buildings, but for the most part, the proposal this evening is consistent with what they're looking to move forward with. Again, this aerial shows the location of the subject property in relation to other development in the area. Again, it's bounded by generally Caper Drive, Georgetown Drive, Reuben, and Industrial Lane. Property directly to the north is zoned for commercial or retail uses as B2 zoning district. The property directly to the east of the property is zoned for manufacturing, but it's separated from Reuben Lane, and there's a stormwater retention basin which is on the western portion of that subject property. To the south of the site, there's two parcels that are across Industrial Drive. There's one is a large detention basin which serves this property and other properties to the north, and then second, which is on the corner of Georgetown and Industrial, is a vacant parcel that's owned by the Village of Cary. Across from those two parcels, you would get into the single-family residential districts, the Caper Park and Cimarron subdivisions. The concept proposal, which is presented this evening and is shown in the slide, again, comprises three-story buildings, which would be primarily fronted along Caper Drive and Reuben Lane in the northern half of the development. And then the southern half of the development would have townhomes, which would front onto Industrial Drive, but would have rear-loaded garages. So all the access to parking within the facility or within the residential units would be handled within the site and not directly accessing onto roadways. Some of the bulk requirements which are listed on the slide, the proposal would equate to about 16.9 units per acre. Lot coverage would be 56% of the lot as currently proposed, which is below the code requirement of 70% for the zoning district. Parking of 2.2 spaces per unit would more than double the code requirement for senior housing within the Village of Cary of 1 per unit. The height of the structures, again, 40 feet for a three-story building and 30 feet for the townhomes. The maximum height for the zoning district is 50 feet, so it would comply with the bulk requirements from that standpoint. The main variations that are presented in the current plan would be for the building setbacks. Generally, the BP district requires a 40-foot setback from an adjacent roadway. So the north, east, and south property lines, as you can see, are slightly below that as currently proposed. Would be variations of 10 to 15 feet for those locations, and development would comply with the western setback adjacent to the Goddard School of 15 feet. The village's comprehensive plan provides direction as far as the future land uses for this property and also towards senior housing within the Village of Cary. Proposed or the long-term land use plan specifically identifies the property as appropriate for industry and employment, which the subject business park zoning would be further that future land use. The Western Gateway sub-area plan provides additional direction regarding the plan, speaking towards targeting future light manufacturing or business park development on the property, targeted for business development. And then as far as transition of development, looking at less intense uses on the southern portion of the area and more intense on the northern portion along the commercial properties. So although the land use plan provides specific direction to this property in that regards, there is also further guidance in the plan regarding senior housing, the need to provide additional housing options within the village of Cary. There's reference on the slide, there are a couple of examples of areas that the plan encourages new multifamily housing in a manner that is compatible with surrounding land uses, trying to buffer from existing uses, but also consistent with existing development in the area. And then while the plan doesn't specifically identify specific future locations for senior housing, it recommends, recognizes the importance of developing additional housing types in the community for senior housing activities. Tonight's discussion is really to provide the developer an opportunity to come before you and discuss the conceptual project, and, seek feedback from the committee of the whole prior to them going through the formal zoning process, submitting a formal application. Main question is, is there support for senior housing on this site? And then if there's approval from the committee of the whole for the project to move forward. So with that, I'll be happy to have the developer come up here and discuss the proposal to the board, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the proposal or zoning requirements for the project.
Good evening. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Dave Cook, and I'm here tonight representing the contract purchaser for the 4.5-acre vacant parcel on Industrial Drive. This is our first time before this board with this concept at this location, but this concept is one that we've been working on for just over a year in terms of somewhere in the village of Cary. It was last June that I sat down with Mayor Mark and Brian upstairs in Village Hall, presented a vision here of trying to bring in larger size senior housing developments into town. We talked about a couple different parcels within the village limits, spent a few months going through all of them, and really fell in love with this one off Industrial Drive just because of what it offers with the residential, very close, walkable to park, walkable to grocery, walkable to future highway commercial off Three Oaks, across the street from open space, just walkable to everything. It's a great location for that senior demographic. What we're looking to do is create a senior housing community that is market rate and allows independent living, maintenance-free living for 76 families here, or 76 residents. We've got a couple different housing products. Brian talked about them. We've got a townhome product that comes off Industrial Drive. That will be a 2 to 3 bedroom townhome, but very important there is every single one will be designed with a first floor master. So all of your daily living activities, kitchen, dining, family, master powder room, master bed, and master bath and closet are all going to be on that level. It will also have a detached garage in back, attached garage, laundry on the first floor. So it's ranch style living with the option of having, a second or third bedroom upstairs. And one of the reasons we're offering that second and third bedroom up is because it gives opportunity if somebody has, whether it's overnight guests, whether someone's looking for a second master, whether somebody has a live-in caretaker for a spouse, there's plenty of opportunity within that product for that, as well as, if somebody's looking for a second floor office. The flat units that Brian walked us through, we have 3 buildings there. The concept there is 3-story construction with roughly 20 units per building. You've got 8 units on the 3rd floor, 8 units on the 2nd floor, 4 units on the 1st floor, and then attached parking on the ground level, 10 spaces per building. So roughly half the residents will have garage parking within the building, which is huge in this demographic. as we talked about, you know, on previous projects, I have a sincere interest in doing senior-type housing projects here in the village. My eyes were open to this from a personal level, working with my parents and my siblings as they age, and also with my in-laws. And I've seen what can happen when the older generation stays in a single-family home for too long. My parents stayed in our childhood home, not because they didn't realize they needed to downsize and move into something without stairs, but there weren't those types of housing options available to them in their neighborhood. They had to move out of their neighborhood to find that. So what we're looking to do here is for all the residents, you know, in this northwest portion of Cary, provide a housing opportunity that's right there. All of those existing residents in the subdivisions to the south, whether it's in the single family or whether it's in the townhomes, give them an opportunity to downsize if they're looking for that, someplace close to home that they can still walk to the grocery store that they like, still walk to the park, walk to pick up their grandkids at the Goddard School just to the west. So we're really passionate about this housing product at this location. I think it does a great job of breaching that gap between traditional single family and people looking to downsize into something smaller and something that is maintenance free. Our center building here will have a ground level community room for all the residents to enjoy. It'll be somewhere between 2,000 to 4,000 square feet. The concept is still in design, but the idea there is to have a central social catalyst that is open to everybody, every day, whether it's gathering for nightly card games, meeting friends in the morning to plan the day, whether we're planning a Thursday night, pizza night or Sunday night movie night. That's what we're looking to do, is bring all the residents, of this 76 unit project together in one spot. And the other beautiful thing that it does is it's open. If somebody wants to have a family gathering, I know for my parents personally, that was one of the biggest things that they questioned about moving out is, okay, where do we have Christmas? We don't have room to have Easter. Here there's a central spot that, any resident can have their family members over and use for those type of interactions. Brian talked about the parking. We're really excited to be able to have over 2 spaces per unit. We're also really thrilled about the opportunity to give, I think we're over 75% of the units will have a garage space. We realize what that covered parking or that garage parking means. Everyone is looking to, house that car and, keep the ability to drive. And this project gives over 75% of all the units a garage space. Pricing will be to market. As we talked about, we're a market rate project here. And that being said, that's a quick summary on the project. As Brian mentioned, just looking for some feedback, for the board. We've been working with the landowner on this one for the last couple months in contract negotiations. We finally got to an agreement in terms of them being able to give us the time that we think we need to entitle a project like this and work with the board. But before we move forward and get a tremendous amount of resources involved, just looking for some initial feedback and gut reaction from this group. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Cook?
Well, I'll go first. First of all, I applaud that you're looking to meet this need in our community, because we do have a big need in our community for it. I guess a quick question, I just want to make sure I understand. Are you selling? Are you renting? What are we doing with this?
I'm sorry, this is all rental. So it will be all market rate rental.
Okay,
correct.
just wanted to make sure with that. I like the idea, I like the location. My gut reaction would, boy, I'd love for them all to be able to have indoor parking somehow, because elderly people, I think the idea of having them get out in the snow and in the climate, the different changes that we have around here, that's even more challenging, I think, for people, the elderly, than it is for someone that's not in that position yet. And I might be quickly heading there, who knows? But yeah, I'm curious what you were going to construct it with, things like that. We could get further along with it, but I think it's a pretty well thought out plan. I like the idea of having a townhouse style and then some other apartments.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I don't like that we're losing a business park area for residential, so that's my main concern.
Anybody else have any comments? Well, first of all, one of the first concern that I have too is we've approved a project for you already it'll be coming up on 2 years ago, and we still don't have any permits for that. And it looks like you're duplicating some of the townhouse type things for this particular project. First of all, I'd like to kind of get an update as where are you on the Haber Court project?
Sure. If everyone remembers who was here at the time, we were approved for a duplex project right around Thanksgiving, about a year and a half ago. I submitted for permits, I believe it was the third week of May. So we're excited to officially be in for a permit application here for that project. I know it'll take some time to work through comments with the village, but my goal is to be through the permit process and be starting construction late this summer.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the building materials you're proposing for these, from the townhouses to the actual apartment buildings?
Sure. We're a big proponent of hardy board or cement board siding. So we'd like to use a combination of cement board siding and some masonry for the construction of both.
Anybody else? Do you mind if I continue?
Go ahead.
How do you define the difference between market rate and luxury in apartments?
Interior finishes and price point.
Okay. Have you done a market study to see if that we could accommodate more of a luxury type of a senior housing complex? I see that there's several going up in the area that are more geared towards luxury than they are market rate.
I believe in the market rate demand here. One of the things that we will do as part of our preliminary submittals is submit, a full market analysis to show the demand that we believe exists there.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions from this side? Trustee Kastler?
And I'll echo what Trustee Cavelli said. I have concerns about the business park aspect of it. And my only other concern would be with the stairs issue, which I expressed to you with the Haber Court project as well for seniors. Other than that, I would like to see some further conceptual drawings or whatever, architectural drawings beyond this before, we make a final decision.
Yeah, I tend to agree. That's what my next comment was going to be, because, seeing some sort of renderings and how it looks, how it's going to, be adapted into that particular setting, kind of some sketches with the finishes that you're proposing. I think that might give the board a better understanding of what you're trying to present to us.
Sure. And we're planning to do all of that as our preliminary submittal. I just wanted to get a temperature check or, some gut feedback from the board before we went forward with that.
I guess maybe another question I had, have you done a market survey as far as rentals for seniors? It's a little bit concerning versus, being properties that people would own. So I'm a little concerned with that. And have you studied that at all?
I've studied it personally, and we'll bring in a formal market study, to support what I believe is a true demand here as part of our process, or part of the preliminary submittal.
Well, how is everybody's feel towards getting this ramped up into the system here? ZPA?
I'm
No
not
for
interested.
Any interest, Jennifer?
I don't know. I just want to continue to listen more. I don't know.
Likewise.
You don't want them to go through the process, or you want more information?
More information.
Okay.
Pictures, definitely.
Okay, next steps. Trustee Kraus?
No, I'm not interested.
Trustee McAlpine?
I would just want to see some more conceptual. I think it's hard to make a decision based on a little drawing like this.
Trustee Kraus, you agree with that?
Yeah, I want some more information, or I'm teetering on not interested. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? Is the lack of interest because we're talking about residential use in a business park setting?
Yes, we have
part of
very
it
few
for me, yeah.
available, and that is my main concern. I do not want to lose another business park. We just recently lost a business park to another residential that I voted down for that very reason. So that's why I won't support this.
I appreciate the honesty, so if that's, I'd love to hear from everybody, just so we can gauge. I mean, the worst thing I want to do is, or the last thing I want to do is spend a bunch of resources coming back, putting this all together, if it's something that the board isn't interested in. So it sounds like a no from Ms. Kimberly, correct?
Correct.
I'm leaning more towards that way. I mean, I'd like to have more information, but I do agree with Kim. I also have the same thoughts as trustee Kostler with regard to the ownership versus the renting. I know you guys said that you would do a study, but, you know, I also agree with the mayor too with regard to the luxury more so. So there's just a lot of things. That's why I'm kind of like still up in the air. And
So in essence, you would like to see more information. Kim, we know is a no. She's not interested in the project. Would you like more information? Because we need to give him a direction is if we have an appetite, a majority of the board has an appetite to see what the next steps are, we need to give him that. So are you willing to,
I'm willing to listen.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd say no.
you say no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have some issues with the industrial, the zoning, and then the rental, and then 55. I don't like, 55 to me isn't senior housing.
That's kind of dictated though
I
by,
know,
that's not
but-
anyone's, he has to kind of go by the federal standards on that. The only reason that I would be interested in that area is because it's right behind Goddard. Okay, so my point is, I don't want to see a big industry right behind a little daycare center to begin with. So that's why I'm at least open to looking at that. I do agree that we have to be very prudent and careful with what we're doing with our limited amount of space that we do have available for business development. But I just look at where it's located and it makes me say, I would consider, because of its location.
Brian, how many business park, what do we have, 2 left? 2 or 3?
As far as vacant land?
Yeah.
That- let me pull up the map. As far as land that's developable, that zone business park would be this parcel is one. And then you have the village-owned property that's across Industrial Drive. And then the Chalet Farm property that's along 31 is currently zoned business park as well. All the other business park zoning that are in the village is currently developed.
And Selkie.
Under Selkie is B2,
Okay.
so that's a zone for
It's not business
commercial.
park, you're right.
As you can see on the map here, and actually the zoning map is outdated, I'm just realizing that with the Sage expansion, the entire Sage property, both the former building and the expansion is zoned BP, so it's that light brown color. And then the Goddard School, this parcel, and then the 2 parcels that are across the street on Industrial Drive are zoned BP. And then as you go further east on 3 Oaks Road, the post office building, and then the senior housing development that was approved behind Jewel, those parcels are zoned BP. And then the campus where Village Hall and the Park District are located here are zoned BP. And that's the extent of business park zoning within the village. It's similar zoning to our manufacturing from a standpoint that it does allow more office, light manufacturing type uses. It's not as intense as our manufacturing district, so it does have other uses that are permitted within the business park district that are not permitted in the manufacturing district. And from a retail perspective, retail is not permitted in the business park district. It's only the B2 district, which is the properties that are directly along 3 Oaks Road to the north of the site on the opposite side of Caper Drive would allow retail, but under the existing zoning, you wouldn't be able to get a retail use on this property.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about the zoning here, because there's some concerns, obviously, about, allowing this in business park zoning. And we've got a piece of property here that I would classify as kind of a transitional piece of property. I mean, you're going from industrial to, then you have the vacant parcel that here's a subject property, and then we're going to the Goddard School. And so the business park zoning, as you heard from Director Simmons, we don't have the ability here for, retail to be located here. And then 2, I mean, even if it was zoned for retail, it's so far off of Route 14 that retail really just, it's not going to happen here. And so I look at this piece as, in senior development, I do think is appropriate for this site. I understand there's different opinions about it, but it is a transitional piece. It's not going to be retail. We want to be respectful of what is cited there with it being next to Goddard School. And so it may not be, we may not have all the information as far as the senior development goes from the petitioner here, but I look at this piece and I do think it's an appropriate use. We have a need here in the community to add senior housing. And if we need more information from the petitioner, let's ask for that. But I do think it's appropriate.
Well, I have 2 hard no's and a couple soft. Jeff, are you a hard no on this?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm willing to take it to the next step and see exactly what it is, get more information from the developer.
I'm going to flip mine to a hard no, just because if it was not rentals, I just don't agree with the rental concept there.
Well, a majority of the board doesn't want to see this move forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just ask one last question? If, for some of the no's, if it was a for sale product versus rental, does that change anything?
Yeah, that would change things with me.
Likewise,
I mean, I'd take a closer look at it.
right?
Okay, so all of a sudden, if we're talking about doing for sale here, 3 of our hard no's are going yes. Okay, so I
Well,
start
not
this
hard,
whole
no.
presentation,
No.
potential.
No, just,
No?
I'm going to be a hard no then, if we're going to.
I'm just trying to gauge if,
Well, I think what he's trying, Jeff, I think what he's trying to find out is if we would have more of an appetite for
Ownership.
I'm looking,
home
yes,
ownership.
I would rather have home ownership coming into the village as opposed to rental
And
That's
development.
I can appreciate that, but I do think that we have to be cognizant of the fact that we do have a lot of seniors that cannot afford home ownership. I mean, just the other week when when Dan McConkey was here, he was talking about seniors that are out of their houses because they can't afford the taxes. So there are seniors that just don't have the pensions and they don't have the resources out there to stay in a house, and they need somewhere to live that will be a rental, will be a transition, because maybe what they're living off of is their Social Security, and they may not have a pension. So I think we need to really address whether or not we have a need for rental. To me, the question is, do we have a need for rentals or do we not for seniors? Because you're right, if we don't have a need for rentals for seniors, then we're just, that's ridiculous to bring it in. But if we do, then I think we need to be able to show that and get some information that could substantiate whether we have a need for that. Because all I'm saying is that the seniors that are moving out of their houses, some of them are moving out because they can't afford to live there anymore. Even if their house is paid off, they're on a limited budget. Their taxes are too high, whatever it happens to be, they just can't do it. And I would rather see people that have grown up in our community be able to stay in their community versus saying, you've got to go move to Algonquin, or you've got to go move to Woodstock because we don't have anything like that for you.
Well, what's going on with the property behind Jewel, where there was the senior housing that,
They're waiting for their approval. It won't be till September.
how many units will that be? Do you remember?
Was there 62?
And maybe it's something that, again, those are going to be based on certain needs with seniors. So maybe that will meet our need. I don't know, but I just don't know what is the appetite here for it. I hear over and over again that we just don't have senior housing available for our seniors. And yes, I'd love to see some of his ownership, but some of it is that we do have people that are not going to have those resources available to be homeowners anymore.
Kim, would you consider home ownership?
No.
Jennifer?
I would consider it.
Okay. Chris? I would consider it. Would you consider it, Jeff, home ownership?
Consider it.
I would consider it.
What about like a mixed use? You see some of these things where there's one building that's rental and the rest are homeowners. I mean, I like the idea. I mean, the biggest question I get all the time from our seniors is there's no place for me to live.
Right.
They want single-story living. They want to stay in Cary. They don't want to go to anywhere else. They want to stay here. And, we have some opportunities. I continuously tout your Haber Court property and, waiting for that to break ground. That'll take care of 8, right?
Right, but there's more than that.
Yeah, but there's a lot more people that are interested in it. So I'd be interested in seeing exactly, what it's hard to see from a site plan.
Sure.
I think we would need something that's a little bit more substantive to what, we can bite our teeth into and say, yeah, this is something that might work. I agree with our village administrator about it being transitional. As much as I'd love to throw I'd love to see a retail center there that's too far off of Route 14. And that the property that's right in front of it, that zone, that could be, that's commercial. And then the property to the east of it's already owned by somebody that's trying to rent out, which is not actively marketing it, I don't think. But, this is a good opportunity. I'd like to see a little bit more and get, learn more about it. And, maybe you can work with Brian coming up with some more concrete ideas so we have a better understanding of what your vision is so that we could make a decision based on that.
Do you have the ability, Mr. Cook, to get information as far as what the market demand is for this property, if it's ownership, if it's owner occupied, or if it's, rental?
Oh, yeah, sure. I can put some numbers together for you guys, for sure.
I think something like that would help just from our perspective here of understanding, what is the market, asking for.
Okay.
And again, maybe even have a mixed use, like almost like a PUD, almost have it set up that you've got a whole little development over there, some rental, some ownership, some, there could be a combination there that may satisfy. I don't.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody, for
Thanks,
the time,
Mr.
and
Cook.
thank you for the direction.
Thank you, Brian, for that too. Now continuing on with our village board orientation.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Eric's pulling up the slides here, hopefully finding them. We left this off at our last meeting, reviewed, your departments, our operations here, heard from our legal counsel. This is just an opportunity again for you to, hear from our department heads about our operations, ask any questions that you have. So going forward, we're going to proceed with the Public Works presentation, and then I'm going to review some of the budgetary items as well. Stand by just a couple minutes here.
We know Eric's got it under control.
I'm going to see Eric's passport here.
Usually, except when everyone's watching you. Click on date modified.
Bingo.
You're in 61. Oh, maybe ours are different than yours. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. And I believe last time I promised to only take 4 hours. But I'll try to keep it to 4 minutes. How's that? So for an overview of the Public Works Department, as many of you know, we're kind of broken up into a wide variety of different services that we provide to the residents, everywhere from infrastructure, which is roadway maintenance, a lot of the stuff on the ground, the hard infrastructure. We do stormwater transportation, which involves engineering, community development support, and traffic engineering, distribution and production of drinking water, the collection and treatment of wastewater, which has been a hot topic for this meeting, and urban forestry, which is all of our parkway trees in the public-owned land, and last but not least, the operations and maintenance of our different fleets and facilities. Our department is made up of a wide variety of different skilled employees, just some of the highlights and some of the specialty training that our staff possesses. We currently have 3 certified wastewater treatment operators through the IEPA. We have 3 licensed herbicide applicators and operators, so that's for the placement of the different fertilizers and the weed killers that you see in the rights of way. 1 licensed professional engineer, 1 licensed professional traffic operations engineer, 4 certified drinking water operators. So those are the individuals that operate our wells. And then lastly, we have 1 recently certified wastewater collection system operator. So he's trained in the sanitary sewer system. Organizational chart by services. As I mentioned, we have the different varieties, and our management staff is kind of split up with our team in those various specialties. So currently we have 21 full-time employees, and we are also utilizing 5 seasonal college kids in the out in the field for labor, and 1 for GIS and engineering. Just a quick overview of some of our previous fiscal year statistics and accomplishments. Winter operations, it was a relatively light winter, but we still used nearly average amount of salt, just based upon some of the freezing rain operations that we had to address. Forestry, while the EAB is emerald ash borer, obviously the ash trees have been removed. We still have a good number of, well over 4,000 parkway trees to maintain, which involves parkway trimming, tree stump removals, and parkway tree planting and replacement, of which we did over 200 this last fiscal year. Road maintenance, we have our annual sidewalk programs, road maintenance programs. I talked about crack sealing earlier. We've also we also manage contractors for things like street sweeping. We did a joint contract with the MPI, the Municipal Partnering Initiative, to get a good unit cost and a multi-year deal with that group. And then lastly, storm preparation. So before and after every major forecasted rain event, we always have our crews out there to patrol the different areas and ensure that we have our drain inlets clear of debris so that we don't, so we can minimize the flooding issues that could occur. And right now we manage and maintain about 75 centerline miles of roadways, which also includes, as we mentioned, everything from street lights, bike paths, sidewalks, and traffic signals. Drinking water production. Last fiscal year, we produced and distributed over 500 million gallons of drinking water, and that services about 6,000 plus residential accounts. Service request process, emergency callouts. Our staff does respond to after hours issues, whether it's a water main break or a sewer backup or just operational items that the alarms on our SCADA system provide with regards to the wells and the water towers. And last year we installed the next batch of the remote read water meters. So of the 6,000 plus residential accounts, we're about halfway overall through the village. Last fiscal year, we made a big dent in it with 623. Wastewater, again, we produce the drinking water, which then obviously goes through our system. And of that 500 plus million gallons, we ended up treating through the sewage plant 475 million plus gallons. That involves a lot of wastewater testing. So there's a lot of regulatory requirements that our staff has to collect data for and provide reports to the EPA on. That's for actually both drinking water and wastewater production. We have to do that. And as we discussed earlier tonight, we are working with the new phosphorus limit, the 1 milligram per liter that the EPA has set for all the plants that discharge to the Fox River. Engineering, one of the accomplishments we're very proud of is the ongoing increase in the amount of partnering that goes on between agencies. for us, the Village of Cary has managed to participate last year in 11 joint bids with other agencies. And a lot of that was due to the increased coordination with our neighbors in McHenry County. 4 years ago, I believe we had one joint bid in place with a local community, and now we're up to 11. And hopefully that will continue to increase as we look to minimize the costs for the essential services to maintain the infrastructure. 2018 is a big number, especially with regards to our metro station project. That is the planned construction start for the new station on the inbound side of the platform. We're in the home stretch with the design on that project, with Metro and IDOT and the UP providing their last reviews and coordination on a couple utility items. We'll get that clear, and as I mentioned, we're on target to hopefully begin construction in early 2018. Road program, I mentioned, give an update on that. So we have the $1 million program to resurface roadways this year. We're doing a every other year approach to utilize our available MFT funding, and then doing every other year has maximized our buying power, getting at a bigger size project that will give us a better unit cost as opposed to annually doing a smaller program. And lastly, last fiscal year, we obtained and secured $1.8 million in outside funding, specifically for the Three Oaks Road improvement. That'll begin construction in 2019. That's a federal surface transportation project. And then we had $300,000 in Federal Railroad Administration funding for the pedestrian improvement at the metro station. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jake.
Very good.
Thanks, Eric.
Merit Village Board, I'm going to zip through these slides pretty quick. I know that the majority of you have seen these slides, but just want to again review it, for your information. This before you here is a pretty important slide. It shows, all of our funds within the Village of Cary, all our buckets of dollars. One of the most important here and that we talk about a lot is the general fund. You'll see on the far left within this slide here too, and again within your budget binders, very important row on the bottom here. It talks about where we're going to end the budget year, this current year. So these are in the budget binders, and I'll be happy to review it if folks want to review these on an individual basis. Going forward, and as we've talked about here, general fund revenue for this year, we are balanced. Our revenues are around $8.5 million. Our revenues by category, and we've kind of lost the names here a little bit, but what we call it the big three, and you're not going to see on here, but the blue, the green, and the yellow make up income, sales, and property tax. I mean, that's 75% of our revenues to the Village of Cary, and so they're all very important to us. You can see how we've been trending those revenues, our property tax. The board has made the decision here to remain a flat levy, so there's no surprise with that. Our income tax, has varied, but generally it's been pretty flat, and then our sales tax too. What we've seen within the last few years is no different than what we've seen going back to 2000. I mean, we go back to 2000 and look at the data as far as sales tax revenue goes, and it's a steady increase, but it's mainly flat. I put this in here just to summarize, and it's more for the residents to fully understand too. We hear a lot about, our tax bill, and some folks think that that's controlled by the Village of Cary. There's a small portion of it here, and there's a small portion that goes to the Village of Cary. You'll see our sliver here of the dollar that is provided from a resident's tax bill to the Village of Cary. I think that there is a high level of service that the village provides to residents for that 5% in property taxes that we collect. Moving on to expenditures, again, it's a balanced budget, so expenditures are going to be pretty similar to revenues. We're at $845 million as far as expenditures go. It's a minor increase from last year. Again, sorry, we're missing some information here, but the composition, generally this is made up of the police department's the big blue, and then the green is public works. It's no surprise that these departments make up the majority of our expenses because they are personnel driven. It's about 75% of our budget, but that's where most of our personnel are. By category, again, we've lost some data here, but the blue represents, our personnel costs. The green is the benefits. So again, the majority of our expenses are related to our personnel. Not a surprise, we're in the business of providing service here to our residents and our customers. So with that, the majority of our expenses are going to be our personnel to provide the services. what have we been doing about it here? Within the last few years, we've gone, you see, from 2008 to 2017, we've cut our staff by approximately 30%. That's pretty significant for a town of the Village of Cary's size. Our outlook as far as the general fund goes, as I mentioned, we are balanced this year going forward. We're anticipating a sizable deficit of around $500,000. Some of the driving factors that play into that are the contributions to the police pension fund, costs to provide the services to our residents, including salaries and then the benefits, insurance costs. Our revenues, as we go back to the slide, the sales tax, property tax, they remain flat. There's also this elephant in the room here is the state budget. I mean, you've probably seen a lot of newspaper clippings here related to what is the state going to do and how is that going to impact school districts, how is it going to impact municipalities, and we're watching it. There could be a cutback here to the Village of Cary. Definitely concerned about it and definitely watching it, and it will be something that we'll have to keep our eyes on here going forward. With the deficit in mind that I talked about, I do want to just stop on this slide, for a couple minutes and talk to the board. We really have limited ways in which we can increase revenue. Our revenues have been mainly flat. Our expenses have been increasing here. And these are some options that we have. We've talked about them. If we go back to October of last year, finance consultant Descharmes had talked to the village board about some options that we had for new taxes to be implemented to provide us with some revenues that we don't have right now. We discussed this further in the budget presentation that we had in March, and I want to land on it again. I don't want to wait until the last minute to address our deficit. I do want to hear the board's feedback here regarding these options. The Comcast and AT&T franchise fee, if you recall, board members that were on the board last year, we had reduced our Comcast franchise fee from 5% to 4%. We implemented at that time a franchise fee for AT&T. Essentially, it was a net, it was a wash. Probably revenue of probably $250,000 plus or minus. We do have the option to increase from 4% to 5%, which would provide us with additional revenue of anywhere from $20,000, $30,000, maybe potentially a little bit more. I want to be conservative about that, but that number, it's significant to the Village of Cary. The natural gas utility tax that we have as well, this would be a tax that would be applied here. Our residents would see that. It would have the opportunity to provide the village with approximately $200,000 in new revenue. And then finally, the places for eating tax. The places for eating tax, I will say I'm not fully in support of this. I know we're trying to grow our business base, increase economic development. This would be one that I would not be recommending to proceed with at this time, but I would like to get the village board's feedback on these items right now, and happy to meet with board members to discuss this individually too.
Jake, I'm confused with the places for eating tax. What does that mean?
If Finance Director Descharmes, could you address that?
Places for eating tax is pretty much a revenue option that's available to non-home rule communities, where we could basically impose an additional sales tax of generally what I've seen is 1%. That would apply to eating establishments within the Village of Cary. Would not apply to all of our establishments. There are, let's say, pizza restaurants that don't have any seating capacity within them, so they pretty much, I believe, would be exempt from that places for eating tax. Pretty much has to do with restaurants or locations that do have seating available for their patrons.
But we do collect a sales tax already from these establishments, right? So this would be
We do receive a portion back, just like we would from any retail business in the Village of Cary, which is currently part of our sales tax budget. Mm-hmm. This would be above and beyond the existing sales tax budget.
Would it be even fast food restaurants? If people are going in to eat? I mean, someone to McDonald's, are they going to be charged that?
As long as there's seating available,
Well,
yes.
the reason
that's-
I'm asking is if it's a drive-through or it's a step-in, is it different if you're going through drive-through versus you coming in, or is it because they offer it, there'd be a
Because they're
tax on all of
offer
it?
seating, I
Okay.
believe it would
Just want to
apply
make sure I
to
was
that as
aware
well.
of that.
Yes.
I'd be interested in learning more about it, just because that can be dispersed not only on the Cary residents, but on other residents. And I know other places that have that, I mean, it hasn't deterred me from going to eat there just because there's a 1% tax. So as opposed to like the natural gas utility tax, that's going to be solely on the backs of Cary residents. So I would be interested in learning more about the places to eat tax.
I'm open to all of them. I think we have to, I feel like we need to be open to all of them based upon facing a $500,000 deficit, that we need to look at what are different things we can do.
I think it's important to at least talk about it at this point in time, just from the standpoint of $550,000 is not a small amount of money here. It takes an awful lot of new businesses to come into town. And then it depends on the type of new business that's coming into town. Please understand, even when it comes to retail or restaurants or fast food restaurants, many times the sales tax that they project to generate may come in, but generally we can see when we study the data, looking now and looking back at what we had, that generally $1 we pick up here just means we're losing $1 from another restaurant that was in the village of Cary. So sometimes it's not always an immediate gain. To think about it at this point in time, though, $550,000 of revenue, it takes a while to build up to that. By the time we get to May 1 of next year and we're looking at our budget and trying to pass a budget, we need to have things in place to at least meet the expectations of our expenses. I think it's equally important that the board understands this year it's a little more important than it's been in the past, only because on that first table that Jake showed you, when you look at the balances that are sitting out there in the funds, especially the capital projects funds, those balances have reached a point where they're probably down well below $500,000, especially in our capital project fund. Well, I can tell you just based on the years that I've been here, I haven't seen a capital project budget that's been passed here yet that was beneath $1 million. So if in fact there's no money in the capital project fund for all of those ongoing capital needs that we have, those need to be funded too. And the only way they get funded is if there's not money in the capital projects fund, that means it's a transfer coming from the general fund or some other source of funds that are out there. And there's not a lot of those.
We don't have
That's why it's
the
important to talk about.
ability to transfer anything from the general fund. I mean, you'd be pulling from your building fund that we've tried to build up over time, or land conservancy, that we've worked hard at. So there just aren't a lot of options out there for us.
What about other communities? Is it a common practice to have a natural gas utility tax? I mean, I have not looked into other communities, and I just don't know. Is that commonplace? I mean.
There are many communities that do have have utility taxes.
What about
generally on
communities our
all of their
size?
utilities.
The village of Algonquin has, a natural gas utility tax.
Okay,
I'd say in many non-home rule communities, they do adopt them because
Sure.
they have so few
We're so
revenue
limited.
sources available to them. Home rule communities have many other options.
Okay.
They have home rule sales taxes they can adopt, food and beverage taxes. Those
I mean-
types of
We
things.
we just don't have a lot of options. I
Right.
mean,
We
when
have
you look-
limited options.
When you
Right.
look at the
That's what I'm
list, I
thinking.
mean, this is pretty much everything. I mean, there's some other things that, we can look at here, but not significant dollars. What I did pass out here too was just the staff report from the October meeting that I referenced, where we talked about, the budget projection. And in here it talks, and it includes information about the eating establishment tax, and that would bring in approximately $150,000 to the village of Cary. And so yeah, that is substantial, but $150,000, everyone can do the math. I mean, we still got a long ways to go to balance the budget, so.
When we talked about utilizing electrical aggregation, wasn't there an opportunity for revenue for the village under that program?
Through electrical aggregation, I believe you are correct that we could have received some revenue. The decision that we made that I think was appropriate is that we turn that back to the residents, and so they saw the savings then on their bill.
But that would be the same thing as a natural gas utility tax, basically.
Well, the electric utility taxes, that's different. Aggregation, when we did the aggregation program, many years ago and implemented that, that was totally different here. We have an electric utility tax, right now that we levy.
But I remember being at one of the chamber, when, Mark, you did your chamber roundtable talk, I think it was you, not Kieran, I think it was you. Anna Mae Miller, I remember her making mention that there was an opportunity when we went to the electrical aggregation that we could somehow, like the tick, tick, tick at the end of the numbers, where the levy, that we could, some of that could go to the village.
There may have been, again, that was a while back when we had those discussions, but I think at the time that went to the residents, that savings was passed on to the residents.
We decided not to collect
Decision
it.
that was made,
Yeah.
to pass it along to the residents.
Right.
Rather than capturing it for the village itself.
Correct. But I mean, it is an opportunity there.
Yes.
I don't know
So we could revisit that, or you cannot revisit that?
Well, I don't know what the number is going to be. Our aggregation program is going to be up. It's actually one thing that I'm working with our consultant right now is just what are our options and if it's going to be something that we're going to continue or not, so.
I can, just having worked with a bunch of communities on the aggregation, and it's a mix of what communities decide to do, but certain aggregation contracts can include what's called a civic contribution fee. It's still imposed on the residents, so it's a pass-through, but it goes to the village to fund whatever, and it's usually around somewhere between 10 and 20. I think the highest I've seen is 25,000.
Okay.
So it's not a huge amount of money, but there is an ability to do that, to enter into a contract to get that fee.
Is there other comments from the board?
I think that people just need to get more information on this and the direction that you think that we need to go.
Okay, when we say more information, what specifically are board members looking for?
What other options do we have? And I'm going to throw this out just because I have to, so I'll say it. Do we not have the option to fund our police pension at a lower portion, if that's what we had to do or not?
At the present time, no.
Okay.
The choices we have related to our police pension levy are based on the fact of what's determined by the independent actuary.
Okay.
Pretty much we're funding at that level at this point in time. And the village has consistently funded
Right.
based on that model. So that's really not going to free up any dollars from that standpoint.
Well, that's something that we've worked at with the state level through our associations that, working with the state with regards to that.
I mean, pretty much to give you an idea, just in a nutshell, trying to think of everything conceivable out there. License fees, you could look at, see where you stand in comparison to other communities, that type of thing. I know the board's feeling related to property taxes in terms of property tax levies. New growth, we've run that concept by here before, and I'm only mentioning it just from the standpoint of, I know that brand new building that's sitting out there in the business park is going to be coming on the tax rolls at some point in time.
Yeah.
So that will be coming,
Sage.
the value at least will be added to the village's assessed value, so it'll provide us something that we can consider. I have no idea, I haven't seen a number yet to even give you a reasonable understanding of what that addition could be worth, just from a new growth standpoint. But in terms of things that you're looking at, and based on the size of the building that's being built out there, it's probably an option.
And what about any additional municipal partnering, any contracts that we could possibly do some
Yeah,
savings from municipal partnering?
That's something that we're doing on a daily basis.
I'm just trying to think of,
Yeah,
when you're saying, where
no.
are we at for,
No matter what, our deficit situation or budget situation is, we're always going to look at that, and we're always going to continue to advance those as much as we can. I mean, we heard from Director Morimoto, I mean,
Right.
he's continued to expand it. That's where we see a lot of the savings. Obviously, we're working on some other small ones here, updated the board on IT and things like that, but those are smaller dollar amounts here, so.
We already have electric utility, we have the telephone utility, we can look at the gas utility, new cell phone leases or cell tower leases on our water towers, those types of things. Towers installed downtown, those generate money.
what happens if we sell some of our property? Where does those
Well-
funds go if we sold any of our property?
When
I mean,
you're
we're
se-
brainstorming, right? That's what you want us to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just
Yeah.
throw some things here.
When we're selling property, I would recommend that go into, your capital projects fund. Anytime that we get, one-time revenue sources, that's where I would recommend where we put it. I mean, we're looking here, and it's a good question, certainly to ask. But for your general fund, we need something that's sustainable and happens year over year, recurring revenue.
Another option too would be similar to what Fox River Grove tried to pass a couple of years ago, the percentage sales tax increase, put that out for referendum.
Sure.
And that would kind of fall back on what you were saying in terms of the food
Right.
tax, that it would fall on multiple people, not just the residents of Cary, but people that are shopping in Cary. They would help contribute to and I think somewhere along the line, I'd heard a couple of years ago, like 450,000 or something that would generate for the village.
Well, we could run those numbers based on the fact if a referendum were to pass, depending on the tax rate you set for that, based on what our current allocation is of sales tax from our businesses, we could run a calculation and have a pretty good idea of what that would generate.
That would be something I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Again, that
We'll
would
get
be a
that information.
referendum standpoint.
Good comments.
For additional information then, as far as the Comcast AT&T franchise fee, is there anything that folks need for that?
What, I mean, just figure out what that's going to be. I'd like to know more about we understand we already know what the figures are for the natural gas utility, but the places for eating tax, maybe more information about that, what exactly that is, what are capabilities for that?
We could run an estimate of that. In the state breakdown, it'll show eating establishments in Cary. Just taking 1%, since we're getting 1% back, we have a pretty good idea of what it generates.
And with that, I'd be interested to know whether towns have it and has their economic development been affected by it at all?
Okay. Would the board be interested of what other towns have the natural gas utility tax and too?
Yeah.
I think
I
that
just
comes
wanna know
into
who's
play.
got it.
Yes? Okay,
I think we need to look at all of them.
I do too.
very good.
And generally, businesses would pay that as well as residential.
So moving on, just want to update the board on major projects. I don't think anything here should, come of any surprise. One of the projects that we're working on here right now is our RFQ as far as architecture services go for our police/village hall facility. As we've discussed previously, we'll be working on RFQ for village attorney, labor attorney, prosecuting attorney services. Maplewood School property, has been in the news recently here. If someone is awarded that bid, certainly we'll have to work village staff with the school district and with the individual or developer that wins that bid. Water and sewer rates, studying and implementation, this was on the previous meeting. Obviously, we have accomplished that, and so we can scratch that off the list. Certainly appreciate the board's, work on that. Our unified development ordinance, we have discussed this multi-year project here to help update our subdivision, our zoning, and our sign ordinance. The phosphorus treatment plant project, the board is aware of that. Metro Station, continued work on that here from Director Morimoto and his staff. Hope to have construction here proceed in 2018. Continue to discuss, which we have been trying to hit on here October and March, and now, our budget challenges. I just don't want to wait to the end, and I want to have a plan here of how we're going to proceed. and then a renewed emphasis on economic development, continue to work on, doing as many business visits as we can and reaching out to our business community. I include this slide, and the board has seen this previously here, but I think it's important of just, we've got this huge project list that we're trying to work through here, and I stole this from Ansel Blink, so thank you, Julie, for providing it, and they got it from someone else. So I do think it was well put. We have elected officials, what the responsibilities of elected officials should be, and on the second slide, I have information of, village staff responsibilities. Not going to go through every one, but I think there's a couple important ones I want to point out here. One, somewhat toward the top, is be a team player here. Support decisions of the village board, even if you voted against an issue. We are a team here. There's going to be times when we disagree. That's healthy, but we're in this together. And then the one on the bottom here, I think kind of sums up a lot of what's in here is have your nose in everything, but your fingers in nothing. We're here, village staff is here to manage and run the day-to-day operations. I do expect that the village board is asking questions about what is going on and understand what's going on, but you hired us to manage, and that's what we're going to do. So is there any question or comments about this from board members, things that you like within this, things that you maybe don't agree with?
On the whole presentation?
No, I'm just saying within this slide.
It's a great slide. It's a great slide.
And then staff, continuing on here, I mean, again, we're in this together here, and as a group, we've got a lot of projects to accomplish. And I think that these are all well put too, is, and some that I want to point out here is just being flexible, being open to new ideas. We have to understand that, not always are we doing things, the same way as in previous years. We have to be open to changing our operations when it's appropriate. And additionally to performance duties as effectively and efficiently as possible. I think that, we're here as, to provide public service to our customers. And we would not be doing our jobs if we would not be providing these services as efficiently as we can. And so I think it's important that these, we try to meet them. I provide this all to our department heads to try to meet these to the best of our abilities. And so with that, I just want to know if there's any questions from the village board. Certainly appreciate your patience. I know it took over a couple meetings to get through, but again, thank you for your time.
You guys did a great job with that.
Thank you.
It's a lot of info.
Thanks, Jake. I'm assuming nothing's changed with the department heads in the last hour? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel, Illinois 120/2C1 and Illinois 120/2C3, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and the selection of a person to fill a public office. And 2, closed session minutes review, Illinois 120/2C21.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll begin immediately.